I caught my wife moaning someone else's name in our bed. Not in her sleep, not in a dream, but in real time, right next to me while texting. Welcome to Confession Reddit, the channel where real stories reveal the truth behind betrayal, love, and heartbreak. If you've ever questioned your partner's loyalty or wondered how subtle signs turn into life-shattering secrets, you're in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. These stories might just save you from walking blind into disaster. Now, let me tell you mine. My name's Ethan Miller. I used to work in corporate finance for a logistics company out in St. Louis, Missouri. I was good at it. Not great, not groundbreaking, but solid. For nearly 8 years, I showed up, did my job, stayed late, and came home to my wife, Rachel. We met during our college years. She was studying graphic design, I was slogging through accounting and business analytics. We weren't a perfect couple, but we had a rhythm, a system. Until that system collapsed. The layoffs came out of nowhere. One minute I was making $94K a year, managing mid-tier contracts. The next, I was sitting in a cold meeting room with HR, being told restructuring was the word of the month. They handed me a white envelope and a half-hearted apology. That was it. I still remember Rachel's face when I told her. She blinked slowly, paused, and then said, "So, what do we do now?" No hug. No, it's going to be okay. Just the weight of uncertainty flooding into our small, one-story house. We'd bought it just 2 years before. The paint in the guest room was barely dry. For the first few weeks, I held it together. I applied to everything remotely relevant. I updated my resume. I started waking up early to check job boards, obsessively refreshing LinkedIn, Indeed, and every other godforsaken site that promised opportunity but never called back. Rachel kept working from home. She was a freelance designer for a local marketing firm. She was good, sharp with color theory and branding, but her income alone couldn't cover everything. Not for long. I could see it on her face each day. The tension, the shift. She started working longer hours, claimed she had projects or client calls even late into the evening. Sometimes I'd hear her laughing in the other room, which was strange because I wasn't laughing, and no one paying you late at night should be funny. But I brushed it off. I told myself, "You're stressed. Don't project. She's doing her best too." The turning point came one Saturday night. I had spent the entire day trying to troubleshoot an online certification course, something I thought might help me pivot into data analytics. I was drained, frustrated, and honestly just needed a sliver of comfort. Rachel came home around 9 p.m. She said she had a branding shoot with a local boutique. She smelled like cologne. Not hers, not mine, something deep and woodsy. When I asked about it, she laughed it off. "Oh, one of the store owners hugged me. He was wearing way too much." I wanted to believe her. God, I needed to believe her. But the way she avoided eye contact as she slipped out of her heels, it felt like I was watching a stranger undress in my home. That night, she curled into bed beside me, phone clutched tightly in her hand. Her screen was bright. She was texting someone and giggling. I pretended to be asleep. And then I heard it. "Don't say that," she whispered. "You'll make me wet again." I froze. My heart thudded so loudly I was sure she could hear it. She giggled again, then whispered, "I wish you were here. I need your hands on me." Still pretending to be asleep, I slowly turned my head toward her. She was smiling at her screen, biting her lip. Not once did she glance at me. I lay there in silence, rage, heartbreak, and disbelief swirling in my chest like a storm. I waited until her breathing slowed, until I was sure she was asleep. Then I took her phone. Locked, of course, but I'd seen her enter the passcode dozens of times. I knew it. My hands trembled as I typed it in. The messages weren't just sexual. They were intimate. She told him things she never said to me. How she missed his smell, how she hated hearing me walk around the house in the morning because it reminded her I still hadn't found a job. She wrote, "I can't stand seeing him like this. It's pathetic. And worse, I wish he'd just leave, then we'd be free." I scrolled and scrolled, sinking deeper into a place I didn't know existed in the human soul. A place past hurt, past anger, past even humiliation.
A place where all you can feel is empty. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed while she snored lightly, unaware her entire mask had slipped. And I started planning. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I needed more. Proof. Strategy. If she thought I was weak before, she was about to see how wrong she was.
The next morning, I pretended everything was fine. I kissed her forehead like I always did, made coffee, even asked if she wanted avocado toast, just to keep up the illusion. She smiled, fake, thin, and said she'd just grab something later. She left for another client shoot, and the moment the door closed behind her, I powered up an old laptop I hadn't used in years and started digging. I created a new email, signed up for a free trial on a monitoring app. I didn't like it, but I needed it. I needed to know everything. Her texts, her calls, her locations. If I was going to burn my marriage to the ground, I wasn't going to do it on a hunch. I wanted her lies wrapped in timestamps and GPS pins. For the next week, I watched her every move, from a distance, like a ghost in my own life. Tuesday, she told me she was at a coffee shop editing photos. The tracker showed her at a 2-bedroom condo downtown for nearly 3 hours. Thursday, she claimed she was doing a late-night Zoom call with a client from California. But her phone pinged from a hotel off I-64, the same hotel we used to stay in for anniversaries. Every night, she came home with that same exhausted look, like loving someone else was emotionally draining. And yet she kept sleeping beside me, kissing me goodbye in the morning, asking me if I'd applied to any jobs lately. The nerve of it all made me sick. One night, I watched her in the mirror as she undressed. She'd bought new lingerie, black lace, barely there fabric, something she hadn't worn for me in over a year. I knew it wasn't for me. I didn't say anything. I just stared at the reflection of a woman I no longer recognized. I should have confronted her then, but I was waiting for something bigger, something undeniable. And then I got it. Saturday afternoon, she told me she was going to a marketing seminar with a few design friends. It was supposedly hosted at a creative co-working space in downtown Clayton. I smiled, nodded, told her to have fun, babe. As soon as she drove off, I followed her. Not close. I stayed a few cars back, like I'd seen in movies. I didn't even turn on music, just the sound of tires rolling over asphalt and the occasional pulse of my own heartbeat in my ears. She didn't go to any seminar. She drove straight to a condo near Lafayette Square, parked, got out with a tote bag, and flowers. Flowers, the kind you give someone you're in love with. She walked up like she'd done it 100 times. No hesitation, no checking over her shoulder. I parked 2 blocks away and waited. 10 minutes, 20, 40. After an hour, I got out and walked. Not to confront, just to look. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I got to the building and stared up at the second-floor windows. There was a flicker of movement, a shadow, then a curtain pulling closed. I wanted to scream, to punch through glass, to kick the door down and drag her out by her lies. But I didn't. Instead, I turned around and walked away. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a husband. I felt like a spectator in someone else's love story. That night, she came home smelling like sex and citrus. She was glowing. Said the seminar was so inspiring and that she felt creatively energized. I nodded and said I was proud of her. Inside, I was dying. The next day I printed everything, screenshots, location logs, even a few photos I'd managed to take of her car outside the condo. I put them all in a manila envelope and tucked it inside my desk drawer. It was no longer a question of if I'd confront her, just when. But then something happened that shifted everything. She got a text late at night, past midnight. I was awake, pretending to scroll through Reddit. She smiled when she read it. I asked, "Something funny?" She jumped slightly, like she forgot I existed. "Oh, just a meme." "Can I see?" She hesitated. "It's not that funny. You wouldn't get it." That was the first time I saw the crack in her confidence. She was nervous, guarded. And for the first time in weeks, I had the upper hand. I leaned back and said, "Okay." 2 days later, I went to her laptop. She always used it for work, but she rarely closed her tabs. I opened the browser. Her Gmail was logged in. She hadn't even cleared her history. A week later, she asked me if I wanted to go on a weekend trip together, just the two of us, to reconnect, she said, clear our heads. I stared at her for a moment, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Reconnect? After weeks of betrayal and gaslighting? I forced a smile and asked where she had in mind. She suggested a cabin near the Ozarks, a place we'd gone once years ago when things were still good, when she still touched me like she meant it. I said yes, not because I wanted romance, but because I wanted to watch her squirm. We drove out Friday morning. She played one of her old playlists, soft indie stuff, the kind she used to burn onto CDs when we first dated. She sang along like nothing was wrong, like we were just another couple trying to escape stress for the weekend. I nodded along, watching the road, watching her, wondering how much of her was real anymore. The cabin was cozy. Wooden walls, a stone fireplace, a view of the lake out back. She poured us wine that night, lit candles, tried to seduce me, and I let her. I let her kiss me, let her unbutton my shirt, let her whisper things in my ear like she still loved me. And the whole time, I imagined Travis. I imagined his hands on her, his voice in her ear, the things they said about me when I wasn't around. I didn't finish. I couldn't. Halfway through, I pulled away and said I had a headache. She looked disappointed, but didn't push it. Said she was tired too. We slept in the same bed, but might as well have been on opposite ends of the earth. The next morning, I made breakfast. Eggs, bacon, toast. She acted like we were newlyweds, told me how nice it was to have this again. I asked her why she never smiled like this at home anymore. She paused, chewing on her lip, said, I guess I've been overwhelmed. I just miss feeling like myself. I nodded, told her I understood. But inside, I was screaming. That afternoon, while she took a nap on the deck chair, I walked into the woods behind the cabin and called my best friend Nate. Nate and I had been tight since high school. He knew everything about me, including the fact that I'd lost my job. But I hadn't told him about Rachel. Not yet. Now I did. I told him everything. From the first suspicious night, to the messages, the photos, the hotel, Travis, the group chat, all of it. He was silent for a while, then said, Jesus, man, that's beyond cheating. That's psychological warfare. I laughed bitterly. You think I should confront her? He sighed. Not yet. Not until you've protected yourself financially. Get your ducks in a row. She's playing this like a game. Don't let her win. That stuck with me. Don't let her win. When we got back home, I became a different man. She didn't know it, but I'd already opened a new checking account in my name only. I started shifting small amounts of money out of our joint account, not enough to notice, just enough to survive when the bomb dropped. I backed up every single file, every photo, every message. I encrypted the evidence and stored it on 2 different drives. One I kept in my sock drawer, the other I gave to Nate, just in case. I also started recording, not video, just audio, little moments, her making excuses, her whispering on the phone, her telling someone, don't worry, he's clueless. Each clip was a nail in the coffin. One night I walked into her in the bathroom, holding her phone in one hand, standing in front of the mirror in a bra I'd never seen before. Her hair was curled, lips painted. I asked, date night with your client? She jumped. What? No, I'm just, trying on new makeup looks for a campaign. I walked away. Didn't even flinch. Because by then, I'd stopped hoping for an explanation. I just wanted a finish line. And then it came. A Thursday, late September. She came home late, wearing a tight black dress and heels that clicked too sharply on the hardwood. I asked how the project went. She said, fine, and walked past me. But as she did, her phone slipped from her purse and landed screen up on the floor. A message flashed. It was from Travis. Still wearing my scent? She froze. I picked up the phone, looked at her, dead in the eyes, and I said, you should start packing. Her face twisted. What? I dropped the phone on the table, walked to my desk, pulled out the manila envelope, and threw it at her feet. She stared at it like it was a bomb, then slowly picked it up, opened it, flipped through the pages, and her expression changed. from confusion to horror to fury. "You were spying on me?" I laughed. "You were fucking someone else in my house, on my time, with my food in your stomach and my bills under your maim." She screamed, said I was a child, said I was insecure, said I was sick. I didn't care. I told her I had already contacted a divorce attorney, told her the evidence was solid, told her if she pushed me, I'd go public with it. I'd ruin her freelance career with screenshots and watermarked emails. She cried. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she cried. Real tears. Not because she was sorry, but because she was caught. I told her she had a week to move out, and then I left the house. I didn't even know where I was going. I just drove. No music, no destination, just freedom. Or at least the beginning of it. I ended up at a 24-hour diner on the edge of town, the kind with sticky booths and fluorescent lights that buzz a little too loud. I ordered coffee, just to have something warm to hold. Sat there for almost 2 hours, staring at nothing. A couple booths down, a young couple was laughing over fries. She touched his hand, and he looked at her like she was the only thing that mattered. I remembered when I used to look at Rachel that way. Before the lies. Before the silence. Before she started disappearing into her phone more than into my arms. I called Nate. He didn't answer right away. When he did, he sounded half asleep. "I did it," I said. "You confronted her?" "Yeah." A pause. Then, "How'd she take it?" "Like it was my fault." He exhaled. "You okay?" "I think so," I said. But I didn't know. Not really. The next morning, I came back home just after sunrise. Her car was still in the driveway. I half expected her to be gone, but no. Rachel was sitting on the couch, eyes red, suitcase by her feet. She looked at me like she wanted to say something. Maybe she'd rehearsed some final speech in her head. I didn't give her the chance. I walked right past her, into the bedroom, grabbed a trash bag, and started throwing her things in it, whatever hadn't made it into her suitcase. Makeup, chargers, stray socks. I didn't yell, didn't swear, just moved like a man finishing a chore. She followed me in, voice trembling. "Ethan, please, can we talk?" I kept my back to her. "There's nothing left to talk about." "You don't understand." "I understand more than you think." She tried again. "He made me feel wanted." I turned, looked her straight in the eyes. "So did I, until I lost my job." That shut her up. She stood there, mouth open, no words coming out, like she finally realized just how deep she'd cut me. I handed her the bag. "Go." She left. No dramatic goodbye, no begging, just silence and a slammed door. I watched from the window as she drove off. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But all I felt was relief. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. The house echoed in weird ways without her perfume lingering in the air. No footsteps pacing the hallway. No late-night giggles on the phone. Just the sound of my own breathing and the occasional bark from the neighbor's dog. I thought about texting her, not to fix anything, just to ask why. But I didn't. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. I picked up more freelance accounting work online. Small clients, slow paychecks, but it gave me structure. I updated my resume again, sent out another round of applications. This time, I included a cover letter that wasn't just robotic, it had me in it. My failures, my drive, my clarity. And then out of nowhere, I got an interview. Then a second one. Then a job offer. Not in finance, but in analytics, like I'd hoped. It paid less than my old job, but it felt right, like I was finally turning the page. I moved out of the house a month later. Couldn't stand the memories. I found a small apartment on the south side. Modest, but clean. And entirely mine.
I changed my number, blocked Rachel on everything, or so I thought. 3 months after she left, she emailed me. Subject line, just wanted to say something. I stared at it for a full hour before opening it. It read, Ethan, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I was scared, and I didn't know how to deal with what we were going through. I made selfish, horrible choices. I don't expect you to respond. I just needed you to know that I regret it. I hope you're okay. I hope you're healing. Rachel. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because some doors should stay closed. People think the worst part of betrayal is the act itself, the cheating, the lying, the moment everything shatters. But it's not. It's the aftershock, the little moments that used to mean something. Sunday mornings, shared playlists, inside jokes, turning into landmines. It's realizing you can't hear a certain song or drive past a certain diner without remembering the person who chose to hurt you. And yet, I survived. Somehow. I got stronger. Not overnight, not in some Hollywood montage, but day by day, breath by breath. I met new people, made new friends, laughed again. And one morning I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about her in over a week. That was the real victory.
It was strange how quickly the world moved on without her. At first, I thought the silence would kill me. The empty bed, the unused coffee mug in the cupboard, the scent of her shampoo that still clung to my old towels. But eventually, the silence became comforting, like a reset button. I started walking in the mornings, no destination, just movement. I'd slip on a hoodie, grab a coffee from the corner shop, and let my thoughts wander while the city slowly came to life around me. I stopped looking at couples the same way. I stopped comparing. I stopped imagining how many of them were living the same lie I had lived in. It felt good to disconnect. Then, about 4 months after the split, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years, Maya. She and I had taken a few classes together in college. We'd always had a good vibe, but timing was never on our side. She had a boyfriend back then, I had Rachel. We drifted apart after graduation. Now she was standing in front of me in the frozen aisle of a grocery store, holding a bag of peas and blinking like she'd seen a ghost. Ethan? Maya? She smiled. It wasn't the overly polite kind. It was genuine, warm, real. We ended up getting coffee that same afternoon. We talked for almost 3 hours. About everything. About nothing. About life. About how weird it was being in our 30s and feeling like we were still figuring it all out. She didn't ask about Rachel, but I told her anyway. Not all the details, just the broad strokes. The job loss, the cheating, the divorce. She didn't flinch, just nodded and said, "That sucks, but I'm glad you got out." She didn't pity me. She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She said, "I'm glad." And that hit me harder than I expected. We kept talking after that. Texts turned into phone calls. Calls turned into dinners. Dinners turned into slow, hesitant kisses. It wasn't a whirlwind. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was real. She didn't try to fix me. She didn't ask me to forget what happened. She just showed up, again and again, with patience and humor and this quiet strength that felt like safety. For the first time in a long time, I felt like a man again. Not a broken husband, not a discarded mistake, just me. One night, I told her everything. I told her about the tracking apps, the messages, the hotel, the group chat where they laughed about how useless I was. I told her how I'd sat in the dark and questioned whether I'd ever trust anyone again. She didn't interrupt. When she finished, she leaned across the couch, took my face in her hands, and said, "That wasn't your fault. None of it." And just like that, something inside me cracked. But this time, it wasn't pain. It was healing. She met Nate a few weeks later. They got along immediately. Nate pulled me aside afterward and said, "She's good. Hold on to that." I planned to. And yet, even as my life slowly pieced itself back together, Rachel kept hovering like a shadow on the edge of everything. She emailed again, then messaged me from a burner account on Instagram, then sent a letter to my apartment, handwritten, 3 pages long. In it, she wrote that Travis had dumped her, that he never really loved her, that he'd moved on the moment she became inconvenient. She wrote, "I thought I was chasing passion, but all I found was emptiness." She asked if we could meet for closure. I didn't respond. But the letter got to me, not because I missed her, but because I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Maya and I went away for a weekend in early spring. Nothing fancy, just a small cabin up near Mark Twain National Forest. It was cold, but we didn't care. We hiked, we cooked, we read by the fireplace. No expectations, no tension, just peace. One morning, I stepped outside to get firewood and saw the way the sunlight hit the frost on the trees. Everything sparkled. And I realized this was it. This was what life could be when you cut out the lies, when you stop begging people to love you the way you deserve, when you finally learn to choose yourself. A week after Maya and I came back from the cabin, Rachel showed up at my apartment. No warning, no message, just a knock at the door, and there she was, standing in the hallway like a ghost I hadn't invited. She looked thinner, pale. Her eyes were ringed with dark circles, and her coat didn't quite fit her the way I remembered. She clutched something in her hands, maybe keys, or maybe the last pieces of her dignity. "I just wanted to talk," she said. I didn't move, just stared at her. The hallway light flickered above us, casting a soft strobe across her face like the universe couldn't decide if she should be seen. "Please, Ethan, just a few minutes." Part of me wanted to slam the door, but another part, the part that once believed in us, opened it. She stepped inside like she'd rehearsed it, looked around, took in the space. It was small, clean, and obviously not decorated with any trace of her. She noticed immediately. "You've really moved on." I didn't respond, just waited. She sat down on the edge of the couch like she didn't trust it, or maybe she didn't trust herself. "I messed up," she said. "I know that. I know I hurt you in ways I'll never be able to take back." I crossed my arms. "So why are you here?" She looked up at me. "Because I needed to say it, in person. Not in some email you delete, not in the letter. I needed you to see my face. I wanted to ask why now, why after everything, but I already knew the answer. Travis had moved on, her safety net had snapped. She wasn't here because she missed me. She was here because she missed what I gave her. Stability, forgiveness, a place to land. You said once that we were a team, that no matter what happened, we'd figure it out together. That was before you started fucking someone else and laughing about me behind my back." She flinched. "Yeah, I deserved that." There was silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that chokes a room. "I thought he loved me. I really did. He told me I was brilliant, that I was wasting my life, that I could be more. And I believed him. You could have told me that. You could have said you were unhappy. Instead, you chose the most cowardly path possible. I know." She looked at her lap, took a breath, then said something I wasn't prepared for. "I'm not here to ask you back." That surprised me. "I just wanted to tell you I finally started therapy. Real therapy. Not the yoga with journaling kind. Actual hard shit. And I know it's late. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I needed you to know I'm trying." She stood up, reached into her bag, and pulled out a small envelope. "It's not money or anything," she said quickly. "It's just something I wrote. You can read it or burn it. Up to you." She placed it on the counter. "I'll go now." And just like that, she walked out. I didn't open the envelope that night, or the next night. It sat on my counter for 3 days, untouched. Maya saw it and didn't say a word. She trusted me. That alone made me want to burn it without reading a single word. But curiosity's a tricky thing. On the fourth day I opened it. It wasn't a letter. Not exactly. It was more like a series of confessions. Scattered, honest, raw. She wrote, "I hated how your silence made me feel small. I hated how you never cried when I left. I hated that you became better without me. But I also hated myself. I hated the way I craved validation. I hated the way I clung to someone who used me. I hated that I only understood loyalty after I destroyed it. You were never the problem. I was." I folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer, not to keep her close, but to remind myself how far I'd come. A year ago, I would have clung to that letter like it was hope. Now it was just closure. Maya and I didn't talk about it much. She trusted me. And I respected that trust by never hiding anything. Rachel reached out one more time, months later. A simple message. "Thank you for letting me fall apart without dragging me down with you." I didn't reply. Some people don't belong in your future, no matter how much time you shared in the past. And the truth is, forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about letting yourself move forward. Even after everything, there were still nights I woke up in a cold sweat, heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. Dreams where I was back in that house, our house, watching Rachel text someone while I stood there invisible. Dreams where I confronted her, but no sound came out, where she laughed and walked right through me. That's the thing people don't tell you about betrayal. It rewires your brain. Even when life gets better, even when you fall in love again, it's like your heart still checks behind every corner, flinching before it trusts, second-guessing joy because it once wore a mask. Maya never pressured me, never made me feel like I had to perform healing on her timeline. She understood that some scars didn't fade, they just changed shape. But I still worried. What if I was too broken for her? What if the cracks Rachel left behind started bleeding again at the wrong time? One night, after dinner at her place, I found myself staring out her window, watching cars drift down her street in the dark. I wasn't really seeing them. I was somewhere else, somewhere months ago, a different life, a different version of me. Maya came up behind me, wrapped her arms around my waist, and said softly, "Where'd you go?" I hesitated, then said, "Do you ever wonder if people like us get happy endings?" She was quiet for a moment, then replied, "No, I wonder if we'll ever stop thinking we don't deserve one." That hit harder than anything Rachel had ever said, because Maya wasn't just loving me, she was teaching me how to love myself again. We started talking about the future, not in a pick-out-rings way, but in the soft, curious kind of way that creeps into long drives and lazy Sundays. She asked if I wanted kids someday. I told her the truth. I didn't know. I used to think I did, back when marriage felt stable, back when the idea of starting a family didn't scare the hell out of me. But now, I think I want it, if that makes sense. She said, "It does. We don't have to have all the answers right now. We just have to be honest." That was the difference. Rachel had always demanded certainty. Maya gave space for doubt. One afternoon, while organizing some old boxes, I found a framed photo of Rachel and me at a wedding. We were smiling, arms around each other. On the surface, we looked perfect. I stared at it for a long time. Then, without ceremony, I took it out of the frame, ripped it in half, and threw it in the trash. It didn't hurt. Not anymore. Closure doesn't always come in dramatic moments. Sometimes it's quiet, a single breath, a decision to finally put something down. That same week, I got a message from an old colleague from my finance days. He told me a position had opened up back at our former company, a good one, better pay than my current job, more visibility, a step up. He asked if I wanted him to put in a word. I thought about it. Hard. And then I said no, because I realized I wasn't that person anymore. I didn't want to go back, not to the job, Not to the version of me that tolerated being unseen, undervalued, disposable. I had rebuilt myself from the ashes of that life, and I wasn't going to step back into the fire just because it paid better. Maya smiled when I told her, "You know, for someone who thought he was broken, you're starting to look pretty whole." I kissed her on the forehead and said, "That's because I stopped giving the wrong people my pieces." We stood on her balcony that night, watching the city lights shimmer below us. And for the first time in over a year, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Safe. It's been almost 2 years since Rachel walked out of my life. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Other times, like a dream I once had in another lifetime. Fuzzy around the edges, half remembered, like something that happened to someone else. But it was real. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the nights on the floor wondering if I was the problem. The way she made me feel invisible in my own home. The moment I realized love could rot from the inside without anyone noticing until it collapsed. I've carried all of that with me, not as baggage, but as proof. Proof that I survived. I didn't just rebuild my life, I rewrote it. Maya and I moved in together last fall. Nothing fancy, just a second-floor apartment with big windows, creaky floors, and a kitchen that always smells like coffee and cinnamon because she's obsessed with baking when she's stressed. She still leaves sticky notes on the fridge with dumb doodles. I still can't fold laundry the way she likes. But we laugh a lot. We talk about hard things. And when I stare at her across the dinner table, I don't worry about what she's hiding. Because she doesn't hide. She shows up. Every single day. People always ask how you know when it's right. For me, it was the night I got food poisoning from a bad gas station burrito and spent hours doubled over in pain on the bathroom floor. Maya didn't flinch. She sat there with me, held my hand, wiped my forehead, and said, "Don't ever eat gas station burritos again, you absolute idiot." That's love. Not roses or candlelight or grand gestures. Just showing up in the ugly moments, the real ones. Sometimes I still think about Rachel, not with anger, not even with sadness, just with distance. Like she was a chapter I needed to live through to understand who I really was. Would I ever thank her? No. But I can finally say I've forgiven her. Not for her, for me. Because holding on to bitterness is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to feel the pain. I choose peace. I choose growth. I choose the version of me that rose from the wreckage and said, "Not again. Not ever." And if you're listening to this, if you're the one lying awake right now wondering why it hurt so much, why they did it, why you weren't enough, I need you to hear this. You were always enough. They just couldn't see it. But that doesn't make you less. It makes them blind. And you get to move forward. You get to heal. You get to start over. And one day, when you least expect it, you'll wake up in a warm bed, sunlight on your face, a calm heart beating in your chest, and you'll realize you made it.